You're listening to Check-in Gaming for a Better World on GMODISM. Welcome to Check-in Gaming for a Better World. You are listening to the second episode, and we are talking about cloud gaming and gaming as a service.
Yes.
That's the topic for today.
We are back. Somehow.
Somehow we're back. And if you're listening to this, you can also watch it via YouTube. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can only listen to it on Apple and Spotify.
Spotify's the other one.
The Swedish company.
Yes.
Anyways, so cloud gaming.
The other Swedish company.
The other.
What's the first one? IKEA. Anyway.
My Swedish company.
Of course. Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
So basically, cloud gaming is you can access games not on your client, but on somebody else's PC, basically a server, and you're just renting space there. It's basically like renting a server, but it's like compartmentalized, automatic, and it's a different thing. But if you rented the server, that's an easy way to think of it.
I mean, practically, that is what you're doing.
Yeah, you're renting a gaming PC, and you're accessing it through a internet connection.
Yeah.
And gaming as a service goes into that a little bit, of course.
Yeah,
but
I would say cloud gaming is probably like the best example, like practically speaking, of games as a service that we have now. Because I feel like, as far as I know, most sort of cloud gaming services, like GeForce Now is the name of the NVIDIA one, and then you have the Google Stadia as well. I don't know about the Stadia, but I know the GeForce Now is subscription based.
Yeah,
and I think there might be others as well, but I feel like they are all subscription based because again, you are renting a server, practically speaking. So of course you're not purchasing that space on the server permanently. So
yeah, I think I heard about something a few years ago that was free, but I'm not sure if it ended up being a scam. Or
no,
whatever.
I keep thinking of. I should have looked this up beforehand, but I keep thinking of. Do you remember like around the time that Steam came out, maybe a year or two into it, like before Steam had really become sort of the de facto sort of major PC gaming platform?
Yeah.
There was that. What was it called? GameTap. Do you remember that?
I didn't use it.
I mean, me neither. But I feel like. Because if I'm not mistaken, they had a similar sort of subscription-based service, which is also very. I feel like that's more common in console games now.
I do think that since the popularity of Netflix, that you could have like basically cable TV as a service, but with no commercials.
Yeah.
With the success of that, I thought many game publishers thought that it would be a good idea to have the same for. Games. And to be fair, I logged into Netflix on my iPad like 2 days ago.
2 years ago?
2 years ago, 2 days.
So such a long time. Time flies.
2 days ago. And I noticed that Netflix offers games.
Yeah, I know. I've heard about this.
They have games as...
I've heard about this. But they're mobile games, aren't they? They're like ported mobile games for the most part.
It feels like, it's like games as a service, but most of them feel like probably just mobile. They should be games that probably should be free, not the best games. But
I mean, they're games you're playing on your remote. You know, I mean, that's not a new thing though. I mean, even as far back as like 2003, 2004, 2005, there were like do you remember DVD games? That was a thing.
Yeah, like renting VHS, DVD, and games.
Yeah. No, but I don't mean like video game rentals. I mean like there were like DVD video games. It's hard to describe, but it was essentially like.
Oh yeah,
do you know what I mean?
I remember. On some DVDs with multiple movies and something, they could also have some type of mini game.
Yes,
you play with your remote.
And they did have. Again, the only example, of course, that I know about is Tomb Raider.
Yeah,
of course, because that's my little special interest that I have. Oh God, no! But that was like and it was just a port of one of the games. But it was essentially like it was a sort of it was similar to, I would say, maybe you know, like a choose your own adventure sort of thing. It was like, okay, walk up to here. What are you doing now? Are you looking in this cabinet? Are you looking in this cabinet? Or, you know, it was very sort of point and clicky.
Yeah.
Because they were still using you were using the direction buttons on your remote, basically.
Yeah.
Like the up, down, left, right key. Well, not the keys, but the buttons.
But how's that gaming as a service?
No. I was just thinking since we got into Netflix, that was the sidebar.
Okay, yeah,
Sorry,
right.
Go on.
No.
As usual.
So I saw some big titles on the Netflix though. And
Yeah.
I don't dare to click on them because I think the experience will be very bad. I also don't want to play video games on phones or pads. I do prefer the PC experience.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Of course. I mean, it's customizable in a different way.
Yeah, I'm used to the controls too, you know.
Yeah, of course. No, but I think the main sort of the thing with games as a service specifically is, I mean, if we're talking about like mobile gaming, because I feel like that sort of feeds into that a little bit as well. You have these mobile games which are just like, like that there's been an uptick in these recently, but like these mobile games where you don't really have to do anything.
Yeah, cookie clickers.
Yeah.
Or passive games.
Passive. Yeah, I'm on one of those right now.
Oh no.
I downloaded like I don't remember. It was there's a webcomic about like geese, and it's like weird and surrealistic and like a bit. It's odd. It's strangely humorous, but they made like an idle sort of mobile game out of it, and I've been on that, and it is scratching some sort of primordial itch in my brain. It is.
So
I don't
like
know.
It's a passive game, but you don't do much.
No, I mean I click the button sometimes to claim the money that I passively generate. It's like Cookie Clicker essentially.
Basically, okay.
Yes. I mean Cookie Clicker is probably like the sort of prototypical AFK sort of game that there is. But what I was gonna say is I feel like the idea of convenience, like you said, with Netflix perhaps inspiring like cloud gaming essentially, again, because that's subscription based. I feel like there's a move towards, and I hate to, this is gonna be sort of I don't want to. There's no better way to express this. I don't really have the vocabulary to do that, but let's say casual gaming, which is fine. I'm not judging anybody. I'm just saying like casual. I feel like in the corporate world, there seems to be this idea that people want to be able to access video games sort of casually.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily know that that's true for people who actually have an interest in video games. So sort of bringing that sort of quick access format that you have with mobile games, for example, into the wider gaming world, let's say, with cloud gaming and so on. I feel like it's a little bit of a misstep or a misunderstanding.
It's like they want to quote unquote democratize the gaming experience so that quote unquote anyone can access it no matter what device they have, but on the same time they need a very good internet connection. If it's cloud gaming, and if it's gaming as a service,
usually they are always online anyway. Those ones, you know.
And it's like if it's gaming as a service where you're kind of renting to have access to the game, it's like it will probably be a lot more expensive than buying the games really like.
I mean, in the long run, yes, and that's the thing too about it's a complicated topic because I feel like we started with mobile games, with monetization and microtransactions, and that's sort of where everything really started. And then for obvious reasons, because most people have a mobile phone, and most people maybe want something to do while they're on the metro or commuting to work or wherever they're going.
Yeah,
I feel like publishers or whoever makes the main amount of money off of these things, because it's not the developers, it never is, unfortunately. They saw those profits and they were like, do you know what, we can sort of transplant this idea onto the wider gaming sphere, let's say. And then the problem is that the wider gaming sphere is how do I put this delicately?
probably more interested in low engagement gaming experience.
That's true. I like that. Thank you. I was going to say something sort of inflammatory.
Derogatory.
Yes, I absolutely was. No, but that's true. But I think, again, like you said about cloud gaming, it's not a bad idea. I like the idea of a subscription service.
But is it gonna turn into the hellscape of video, like Netflix and HBO and all of that?
I think so. That's the problem.
I want to watch. I don't know. Let's just. I want to watch. I don't know. Some film.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just go to the different services and nobody has it.
Yeah, there's that, but I also think it's a problem of like oversaturation, because like video games are an engaging form of media. A movie, you can just sort of have on in the background, or it's like a podcast or a video essay or whatever else.
Yeah, but what I want
you don't have to engage with it. Whereas with a video game and with books also, you have to really sort of immerse yourself and involve yourself in the experience. And in that sense, I know what I want and I know what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And having a humongous library of games that I'm never going to play because I'm not interested in them, that doesn't really help me.
Now, it's,
you know what I mean?
Playing a game is a big time investment. You are not only going to spend 1-2 hours on it if it's a movie or whatever, or if it's a series. You can watch one episode 20 minutes and you see this is for me or not. But a game, like an average game takes like 6-ish hours to play through. Old game takes like probably 20 hours to play through. And some of the really nerdy games I play with, like From the Depth and like building stuff, and Garry's Mod where you can just build whatever.
Yeah, the ones that don't really have an ending.
I don't know. Do I have like 2,000 hours in From the Depth or something like that?
I don't know.
I don't know. It's a lot.
I don't know.
It's a lot.
I don't know what my highest playtime is and anything. I think it's probably like Borderlands 2. No, Left 4 Dead 2, honestly, probably. Left 4 Dead 2. I think so, which is.
But what I was a little bit worried about, like what is mentioned before, but it's that what if it turns that such a cloud gaming service has the exclusive rights to a game, so that you can't get it anywhere else, and you'll like need to search for different subscriptions to continue your adventure. I don't think a lot of people that are very interested in the game that they play would like that. As you say, I think the gaming as a service, or especially cloud gaming, is mostly better for casual players.
But again, it's like, is a casual video game player gonna... I mean, again, I don't really know the cloud gaming library. Like, I don't know what games are available, but my understanding is that cloud gaming is perhaps a little bit larger in the sort of the console market as opposed to PC. Because again, if you're on a PC and you're playing video games on your PC, you probably have a decent enough PC that you don't need cloud gaming from sort of the hardware standpoint. And besides, like you also mentioned, with since it is entirely server based and it's based on your internet connection, if you have a good internet connection, you're probably going to have, if you've invested into that, you're probably going to have a decent PC as well.
Yeah.
Or you're going to have the interest and sort of the technical know-how to, you know, fine-tune the settings on your PC game a little bit. You don't really have to do the ultra settings, you know what I mean?
No, I really think, as you repeated, that it's really that if you have access to really good internet connection, you probably already have access to some decent hardware. And if you have, like, it's probably easier to get decent hardware than it is to get a good internet connection, because a good internet connection can cost a lot of money in some countries. It's not very expensive in like Stockholm area around Sweden.
I mean, I've got 1,000 megabit, and that's included with my utilities. I don't pay a cent for it, which is insane. Honestly, I was not expecting that when I moved here. But
that's very good, and that's like almost the norm here. So
it is. That's true.
And it is when you pay for it. Like I pay for mine. I think mine is around half as fast as yours, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's more than I need.
Which is, again, it's more than you need, because in practice, you need how much? Like, like you said, 500 is already, like, you need what, 200, 250, 300?
Most people use maybe 100, maybe 50.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
So it's like, yeah. I think they want to sell it in as it's a democratizing factor, but actually, it's probably just for people that don't want to have big hardware at home, that are kind of...
But that's what console games are for. And there is a cloud market for console games to some extent. I know the Switch has a couple of cloud games on it, but that's a hardware issue for the Switch specifically, since it's a little bit less powerful than its contemporaries. But I feel like in terms of, I think, does PlayStation have like a cloud gaming thing? I know Xbox does, but Xbox has that like baked into their little subscription annual pass or monthly pass thing, the Game Pass, I think it's called, which again also is sort of shared between your PC if you have one and your Xbox. But the thing is, nobody is subscribing to the Game Pass for the cloud gaming. They're subscribing for the free video game every month. That they do download, as far as I know, they download it to their console, and then they just get barred from access whenever the subscription runs out if they haven't bought it. As far as I know, so I don't see the need for it.
No, not me neither. It's like, and also then we have the cloud gaming experience.
Yeah,
I haven't played much cloud gaming at all. I've seen some other people.
I haven't. I've barely even like looked at footage, to be honest with you.
Yeah, you tried something, right? With where you decrease the resolution and stuff.
No, that was a different thing. That was not a cloud-based game. It was just a bad Switch port. So that was, or all right. It was just a port. So that was on the hardware. But the thing is, like, I know the Stadia has been struggling. I don't know if that was like financially or in terms of publisher support or what it was, but it's just like it seems like it's one of those things now that sort of has become expected. Like if like for Google, for example, you know, they have their own music platform through YouTube, certainly.
Yeah,
but that's still they have their own music platform. They have YouTube. They have. It seems like you're expected, if you're a big enough tech company, that you have to have some sort of cloud-based service, no matter the use it actually gets from people. And I don't know.
It's probably so if you're going to have a cloud-based gaming service, and you don't have the amazing internet connections that, like, I don't know how it is around the world, but I heard from some friends that it can be pretty difficult to get a good internet connection in America. Yeah.
I mean, it depends entirely on where you live.
Yeah.
And I don't just mean like, oh, what the prices are. I mean, like, geographically.
Yeah, of course.
That makes also a difference.
So, like, the experience, if you don't have the best internet connection, you'll have to basically downscale the resources the game uses so that it can be put through an internet connection and have decent latency and all that.
Yeah.
And that makes it so that it feels like, what games can we play? Like FPS games? Thank you, no. It's like having a bad monitor with a lots of delay. I used my television as a computer monitor before. It kind of worked, but the delay was like too many milliseconds. It wasn't like horrible, but it was bad enough that you would notice it.
Yes.
And it would affect
and once you notice it, it doesn't go away.
It doesn't go away.
Yeah.
And it's like the old keyboards and mice with wireless. It was like, it was enough that you would notice, and it made the FPS experience really bad.
But it's like, because I have a 240 hertz monitor.
Yeah. Nice.
And it's lovely. I
want that.
I love it. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's amazing. But the problem is, I can go down to like 144, and that's okay. Because 240 is a little bit at the limit of like, what can you really sort of pick up on? You know, at a certain point, the tech can technically improve, but it's like the human eye is only so advanced, you know.
And you need a well, you got a pretty fat graphics card, but
I do.
You need an insane system.
But the thing is also, like, you know, what's the difference between 60 frames per second and 120? Of course, some people are gonna swear by that. I'm gonna get killed in the comments for this, and I've accepted that. But like, I don't really, you know, it's one of those things where I think if you get used to something, it's just hard to downgrade. You know what I mean?
But what I'm thinking at, like, that's also the frame rate will be a lot limited if you have gaming as a, like...
A cloud gaming thing? Yeah, of course. It's gonna be 30, because they're gonna have to strangle everything they can strangle in order
so then we kind of narrow down what games can we play. Well, FPS games are out of the game.
Fighting games? So, no.
Yeah, fighting games. So we have, like, turn-based...
Yeah, turn-based stuff. Like, or, again, casual stuff. Stuff that could be played on your mobile phone.
Digital card games. And all of the other games that are probably free anyways.
Yeah.
With microtransactions on, you know...
Everything, yeah.
Apple Store and Google Play. Yeah. So it feels like it's... I don't know. It honestly feels a bit useless.
It does. I just don't see the market for it.
And then you'll have to rent.
I think there's a market, like, in theory, there is a market for it. There is a subset of people who would be interested in this sort of thing based on, like, their mobile gaming habits. But again, you don't have your little Stadia with you, or your GeForce Now, or whatever it is with you while you're in the car, or you're on the train going to work, or wherever you're going. You know what I mean? The portability is the thing there. But even then, like with the Switch, because that was a master stroke from Nintendo after the Wii U sort of flopped completely. Even with that, I'm like, you know, technically in theory I could bring this with me anywhere.
Yeah.
But the main draw of it for me is that I don't have to sit here and play it on a TV. I can be in my bed right over there. You know what I mean? It's not that I'm taking it with me.
Yeah.
Because again, on the Switch, the games I've got, in my case, are a little bit more advanced maybe than, you know, like a Candy Crush sort of thing, or, you know, something that I can just pull out, do a couple moves on, and then put my phone back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it requires attention, and most people play Switch has a limited portability.
Yeah.
They probably have it in their house mostly.
Yeah.
They probably, or maybe they take it with them and sit at the beach or whatever and play something.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like you're going and... running into a coffee shop, getting a coffee, running with your Switch and playing some Call of Duty Mobile. By the way, I played Call of Duty Mobile.
Oh, did you?
I downloaded an emulator and I played it through my computer.
A mobile emulator? Oh, that's...
Yeah, so I could play Call of Duty Mobile.
How was it?
It's honestly pretty okay game. It's a decent game on the PC.
I've been
on the phone.
I've been thinking about getting into that. There's a Devil May Cry mobile thing, Peak of Combat, I think it's called, but it's like a gacha thing, and I don't have the psychological sort of. I don't have the willpower to put myself through that, because I feel like that's again the sort of the not the pay to win thing, but it's a money sink. It's a money sink and a time sink.
Yeah.
And I just want to, you know, I want to pull out my phone. I want to get my little dopamine hit, and then I want to put it back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think...
Again, the problem is the people who cloud gaming is made for, they're not interested in games in that way.
Yeah.
That's the sort of the beginning and the end of it.
And I can also think that the people who are developing the cloud gaming experiences, they're not gamers.
No, they're interested in the tech, which is fair. But again, they're not in it for the gaming experience.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
that's like the issue.
But then, you know, of course, that makes the big publishing companies and whoever else, that makes them want to try to, you know, that's how we got to free-to-play games as well, which are essentially just mobile games that are a little bit more graphically intense and probably more intense in terms of the gameplay also, because there's just stuff you can do on a console or on a PC that you can't do on a phone. But again, it's that sort of thing of trying to bring in... There's a constant push to sort of bring in the casual market. Yeah, and with free-to-play games, I do feel like that...
It's already saturated.
That has worked, but it's oversaturated.
Yeah.
And...
nobody needs this.
But I like some free-to-play stuff. I do. I
Oh yeah,
genuinely
free
do.
to play, but
Free to play in the sense that there's a battle pass and there's an in-game currency and there's all these kinds of things. It's essentially just a mobile game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'd rather sort of pay that upfront fee of like, okay, I gotta pay. How much do you need to pay for a video game these days? Like $80? If we're talking American, I think it's like 70, 80 now. They've hiked it up a little bit.
I play
Which
a lot
makes
of
sense with production costs. So I'm not
I play a lot of
thinking
indie
about
games, and they're like $20.
Yeah.
$20. You can get pretty good games for that.
But if we're talking about like the hyped games, like
Yeah, of
like
course.
the sort of the ones that get sort
AAAs.
of the AAAs that get sort of that
Yeah.
that public coverage in that way.
And they always get bad reviews.
Yeah.
They're expensive.
Yeah, no, that's the thing, because you have that price up front, which I'm happy to pay. But then the problem is they keep putting these sort of mobile game elements into it,
Yeah.
like microtransactions, like season passes. I understand why for monetization purposes a season pass or a battle pass has to exist in a game like Fortnite or Vampire the Masquerade Blood Hunt, which I spent so much money on while it was in beta. You don't understand.
Oh no.
It was a grotesque amount. Like I had a problem for a while there. I could have been institutionalized. It was weird.
Oh no.
Oh no. So I get why that has to exist for those kinds of things.
But if it's one, either you pay every month to access the game, or you have microtransactions.
But that's the thing. I also feel like monthly subscriptions to access the game itself.
Yeah.
That I don't like. But having a free-to-play game with a battle pass that essentially just makes the experience more pleasant, I understand why that exists. And I appreciate it. But the problem is when you have a AAA game, and then they throw in a season pass, and then they throw in another one.
Yeah.
And that's mostly with fighting games. I feel like they really have that problem of like, okay, there's not just one season pass, there's not just two, there's probably 3 or 4 or even 5 or 6. You don't necessarily see that so much with other kinds of AAA games.
But I think I start to understand what's the appeal with cloud gaming. It's that the gaming as a service, nobody wants that shit. It's who wants to pay to have access to games? Maybe if you want to try a lot of different games, but most gamers...
But that's a very specific type of person.
Exactly. You know? Most gamers get stuck on a specific type of game or specific games. Like you're very much into Tomb Raider, and I play my creative building, Satisfactory, and From the Depth, and Minecraft. I play some specific games. I don't want to try so many different games. I have a list of 200 games that are on my playlist. Yeah. So I don't need that. But if I, for some reason, didn't have a computer, or I would want to test some different games, then I could have cloud gaming to be able to play the games when I don't have the hardware. So I think it's from the manufacturers or the service providers' standpoint. They are trying to sell gaming as a service, and nobody needs that shit.
No.
So they are now trying to say cloud gaming but if you don't have a computer, you kind of need this shit.
Yeah.
So I think that's the appeal from them.
Maybe, yeah. That makes sense.
But I'm also going to switch around a little bit, because I thought a little bit on some things with the principle of it, that we can agree that the implementation and the current companies trying to do this, it's going to be pretty crap. We don't really like it. We think the gaming experience is going to be bad. That's what we agree on. And the gaming, like subscription to access game feels just bad. I don't know. But if we switch around it and think about some positive aspect, which I thought about, like, remember in like the 80s or whatever? Not that we were alive.
I was gonna say I was not even, like, my parents had not even thought of me at that point.
So, but you know, they had a terminal, and then they have a mainframe.
Okay.
Do you know those?
Yes.
So the mainframe is like...
I don't know where you're going with this, but I'm with you.
I'm just explaining to everyone that's listening. So we have a mainframe, and that's like the computer at the company. And then we have terminals. And the terminals, they access information from the mainframes. there is not a single computer that everyone uses, but people instead uses mainframes. No, they use well, what is it called?
They look, the terminals connect to the mainframe.
Yeah.
The mainframe is the computer that's being used, and the terminals just exist to facilitate access from multiple points to that.
Much better explanation. I started to mix up words. Very nice. So basically, you have a terminal and you want to access the mainframe. So that means that everybody doesn't need a computer at their working station. Like, they can just access the mainframe through the terminal. So I'm thinking a little bit like that.
I had an epiphany just now. Keep going.
That if we have, for example, in your home, if you have a very big computer and you can just hook up everything as mainframes to that, you need a lot less hardware for your entire home, because most likely all of the devices aren't running at the same time. So on some way, I think it's future-proof to kind of build a system where the hardware that you use is utilized to the max. Since we do switch them out very often, it turns a little bit wasteful. If we had one system we could use for everything, it could be used all the time. And that's the thing with the cloud gaming services. Of course, the cloud gaming computers that you're accessing, everyone is not accessing them at the same time.
No.
If they did, the business model would fail.
Yeah.
It bases on that people can share the same hardware.
Yes.
So that's kind of a thing that's better for the environment in that standpoint, that you need less hardware per person. Now, I think that accessing it through an internet connection very far away is probably just a bad idea, because we're probably more than 50 years away having internet connections that are so fast that doesn't matter. So I think the thing that could be now, like Steam has, is that you can have your Steam game with like good games, and then you can access them through your home internet connection and play on worse computers. I don't remember.
The remote play?
Yeah, remote play.
Yeah.
I never used it, but the remote
I have. It works. Surprisingly, it works. It works. It was, again, there was a little bit of latency and whatever else. But again, the way it works is basically, I was hosting, I was playing Dead or Alive with a friend in the UK. And the way it works is basically the game, or Steam, I suppose, remote play in itself, treats me as the host, and then sort of based on my friend's internet connection, it was basically using my in this sort of mainframe terminal metaphor that we have. I was the mainframe and then he was the terminal. And it worked quite well. It worked better than I was expecting, actually.
And that is, I think,
Of course, the thing is, it was essentially just being streamed to him, so the sort of the image quality was not really there, because it was just like a live video feed, as far as I could tell. But besides that, it was, it was good.
Yeah,
I was shocked.
I think, like, in a future sense, that we could just have, maybe we have just a mainframe, and we can have our phones and tablets and laptops and stuff like that just like act like terminals. Like
the hardware is centralized. That's what you're getting at. Yeah, I mean, sure.
And that's like the positive sides. But the current companies that are trying to implement this, and the problem, quote unquote, they're trying to solve, I don't know. I think it's just a scam. Yeah. Let's not.
No, it's about money. It's not about user experience or anything else. What I was thinking of, though, internet cafes or arcades even. Yeah. That's an instance where I could actually see, but that would probably be proprietary at some. Like each cafe would have their own library and their own sort of cloud gaming service. But that's perfect, isn't it? If you think, again, internet cafes, at least here in Sweden, and arcades, they don't really exist anymore.
I haven't been on one very recently.
I mean, Inferno Online still exists in Stockholm. But
I think I actually went to Inferno Online, like, I think it was less than 10 years ago I was there, actually.
Less than 10 years ago is still potentially a very long time ago. No, but I feel like that's a good use case, actually, because that way you have a mainframe,
Yeah.
which would be in the cafe or the arcade, or let's say an arcade in this case. You'd have the mainframe in the arcade, and then all of the cabinets would hook up to that mainframe, and then people could just play whatever they'd like based on whatever's in game library in the mainframe.
Yeah.
That's a good use case, but that's essentially. I don't know how arcades in Japan work. I think arcades in Japan still do the thing where the game is sort of in the cabinet. Like if there's an individual cabinet for a game, the game is in there somehow on the arcade. I don't know I don't necessarily know how the tech works, but I think it's still very sort of one and one and one. Whereas no, I think that's a good use case. God, I should contact like a tech startup about this. I feel like there's some money to be made there potentially. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like internet cafes. And we have, you have like there's a few in Stockholm, but there are like gaming bars and stuff.
Yeah.
And having something like that there instead of having to have like a physical PlayStation or whatever it is. Because again, if you're running a business too, like we have, I work in a hotel. We have Chromecasts on our TVs. The problem is, because you have some TV models where the Chromecast is built in.
Yeah.
Ours are not. And so because they're not literally welded to the TV, and because they're literally not under like lock and key, and because there's no like tripwire. If you unplug it, there is not going to be a tripwire that like spews poison gas into the room. Although I wish there was, because they get stolen.
Of course they are.
And that's again another thing where, from a business standpoint, you would be saving a lot of money and time and resources in general. Centralizing that. So I'm really proud of myself. That was like, I really had like an aha moment just now.
That's a pretty cool idea. I wonder how one would access the mainframes fast enough, because I do feel that it will need to be fiber. But will the fiber connection be like fast enough to translate for like the image and the computer mouse movement?
I mean, it would be a pretty big investment hardware wise.
Yeah, it feels like there needs some new systems as well. Because I have been, when I worked with the IT support, I did support.
AI probably.
Yeah.
Downscale, the whole NVIDIA thing with the downscaling and the upscaling.
Yeah, that's probably. When I worked with like IT, we were supporting the so-called thin clients, which is basically a fancy way of saying terminal. But the terminals are connected up via an internet connection.
Yeah.
And that internet connection is a bit bad, and everything
remote desktops, basically.
Yeah, it's basically a remote desktop. They're working on a very low-end system, just built to be able to access the ish mainframe from the company. Yeah. And it's a horrible experience. It never works. It's laggy. It's buggy. And
I know. I have like 5 different remote desktops at work too.
It's just really.
I have a little computer where I check people in, which is fine. Then everything else, like the sort of the server side stuff, is all in different. Like there's one remote desktop for the local stuff. There's another one for like the connectivity to the hotel chain. It's messy, and it doesn't ever really work. Just like.
Exactly.
That thing of like, it just works. It doesn't.
It doesn't.
That's the thing.
It works as well as a Bethesda game on release day.
Yes.
It just works.
Oh, but that's part of the charm, I guess. I mean, not when you're at work and you're trying to...
It was part of the charm, but it can be discussed after Starfield.
I mean, the problem with Starfield, this is off topic, but the problem with Starfield is that they are still adhering to sort of game design principles that were last sort of in fashion, or it's designed in such a way that it feels like it's a game from like 10-15 years ago. That's the main problem with that. I have Starfield. I haven't played it though.
All right.
So I'll have to get into that.
I've been refraining to get it since I did. But in any case, we need to refrain. We need to get away from the bad remote desktop experiences if one would have that type of kind of local accessible game, because that would be a cool thing. But I really think that imagine an internet cafe if we could solve the connectivity between the mainframe and the terminals. having an internet cafe with just a really big box with all of that hardware, just super insane. And I mean, they could probably side hustle with, I don't know, generating Bitcoins and Ethereum.
I mean, probably, yeah. Of course, that's also. I mean, again,
Why not?
They
If
probably,
they had
they probably
hardware just
would.
standing there.
They probably would. I don't understand cryptocurrency, so I'm not gonna. Again, the cryptocurrency, like we spoke.
Yeah.
I don't know if we spoke about. See, I'll tell you guys a secret. We recorded that first episode, and that's what's out there. And then we did a retake because we were feeling weird about it. And I can't remember what we spoke about on the actual episode that's live versus what we spoke about in the second take.
Yeah, the second take were just so...
It was stilted. It was
Yeah.
stilted because we had sort of, at that point, we'd already sort of rehearsed and it was just weird.
It was weird.
It was weird.
You're
This is rambly, but this is at least more sort of organic.
Yeah, we listening to ourselves, we kind of thought that it was better this way.
Yeah. No, but I feel, no, that's something, that's an interesting idea. But again,
But it's a little bit, it's not really related to gaming as a service or cloud-based gaming.
That's a cloud-based thing, but gaming as a service, I mean, internet cafes, technically, that's a game. That could be a game as a service
that's
thing.
A gaming as
the thing is with games as a service now, they're priced in such a way that they're either free to enter, which an internet cafe could not be from a business standpoint. You couldn't just let people in. You wouldn't have free admission. And then, of course, they monetize. Free-to-play games monetize in various ways. But my problem is the monetization sort of finding its way into... I understand production costs for video games, especially AAA ones, are so high now that they have to sort of hike the sort of price to entry, like the price you buy the game for.
Yeah.
They have to hike that up, and they have to have the microtransactions in there as well in order to sort of even break even on these things. But there's ways to do it, like with fighting games, because I play a lot of fighting games too, and Warner Brothers are infamously like ham-fisted with their the monetization that they do for Mortal Kombat and stuff. It's just crazy because again, it makes sense from like an esports perspective for a video game to have season passes and that sort of thing, but the way they do it with Mortal Kombat, where they just sort of nickel and dime you for skins and stuff, it's weird. And that's what it goes back to Bethesda and Oblivion with the horse armor.
Yeah.
You know, because you used to have expansion packs, and now you have just little mini things that they could have put in the game, but they decided not to, and it's either a fun cosmetic or it's an overpowered weapon or whatever it is. The problem is, I feel like with a lot of these microtransactions in mobile games and in free-to-play games, if you get an overpowered weapon through a microtransaction, that's the point. That's a design choice. With a game that you pay, like a regular game, let's say, let's call them that. With a game like that, if you have a microtransaction for a very powerful weapon, suddenly the entire game becomes unbalanced. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like they've just ripped that idea wholesale and just put it into the AAA market, which just does not work.
Yeah.
And that's... But again, I mean, I think people are mostly against games as a service, partly due to the microtransaction stuff. I get that, but also from just like a game preservation perspective, because those games they're always online, naturally.
Yeah, and they have a limited lifetime.
They have a limited lifetime, and people are really sort of sensitive about like digital media versus physical media. And how do you feel about that? Because I have opinions, but I want to hear what you have to say.
I kind of like the physical media, but I changed my opinion when the games became so large that you needed like 4 CDs to fit them, or DVDs, I mean. And then it's like, okay, we moved past the point.
Yeah.
Potentially they could make game on USB sticks, but it also feels like then we come to a point when we're producing a lot of unnecessary hardware.
Yeah.
That doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
So I think Steam, and I know a lot of people hate them because they have questionable owners, but Epic Games too.
Yeah.
I think they have a pretty good model.
Yeah.
You buy a game, you can access it,
But
and you own it.
But people are very sensitive about sort of and there's been drama about that. Like whenever games get delisted off of Steam, you can still access them if you have them.
Yeah.
I even bought like long after Mortal Kombat, long after the Mortal Kombat 9 had been delisted off of Steam. I got a key from like a CD Keys website. I think it was cdkeys.com. Actually, I think that was the one. And I mean, the key still worked.
Yeah.
So obviously, I could still access the game via semi-legal sort of gray area means, because again, CD key websites are not the best sort of thing to support, but I really wanted it, so I was like, okay, let me get it from there, because that apparently works. People are just very worried about like, oh, what if my access to this game is barred? And I understand that concern. And I guess GOG has sort of found the perfect solution in that they just give you an installer and there's no sort of DRM or any sort of copy protection on it whatsoever. And that's fine. That's cool. Good for them. But I feel like the concern is a little bit overstated because they want it's made out to be about like it's made out to be like a game preservation thing. And my thing with that is whether or not a game is digital or physical, game preservation is not in the interest of the developers, maybe, sure, but not publishers, not the people who make big money off of it, because they want to chase trends. They want to keep moving forward. The only people who are going to preserve video games are going to be hobbyists, and there's and piracy, essentially, right? That's what they would call it. By they, I do mean like the companies, and you know, technically it is piracy, I suppose. But the thing is, the only people who are going to be interested in game preservation, who are going to be doing it, are the pirates. And for them, I find it doesn't really seem to matter whether or not a game is digital or whether it's physical, because physical media deteriorates. And I have plenty of physical copies of games in a box somewhere behind us here.
DVDs are sensitive.
They
especially to sun. If you ever have a DVD or CD, do not have it near the sun. No sunlight. UV destroys them, just so you know.
Oh, that's true. No, but I have plenty of games on CD and DVD, which are where the installer is copy protected, and it's like an old sort of DRM. It's an old copy protection. I don't remember. It's like Securom and all these like really old ones that you used like back in the early 2000s. And you know, because of them, because hardware has moved on, and the copy protection was sort of made to recognize certain hardware. Since we've moved past that, they don't recognize the hardware I'm on anymore, and so they won't let me install the game. So that's also another barrier to entry. Like if a publisher does not want you to be able to access the game illegally, they'll find a way to do it, whether it's delisting it or whether it because of a licensing thing or whether it's anything else. Like I find the whole sort of thing of like, if I have the game physically in my hands, if I have a game disc, it's mine and nobody can tell me what to do with it.
Nobody can take it from me.
It's like, they can though, and they have, and they do, you know? It's and especially like, with maybe I would have understood the concern with like Steam back in the day when it wasn't as well established as it is. Like when GameTap came about, and it was sort of a competitor to Steam for a little while before they shut down, and that was entirely subscription based, as I mentioned. I think that's what it was. Before platforms like Steam and EGS and GOG were, and even like Uplay, were the norm. No, I hate Uplay. I'm sorry, because that, you know, I'll say this. Everybody's like, oh, DRMs are so intrusive and you lose frames and all this kind of stuff. Uplay games are the only ones where I've literally ever noticed like a performance impact due to the background processes, because it's always online and so on and so forth.
It's really bad when a publisher tries to protect a game so hard that the pirates get a better experience. It's like when they made Netflix. Accessing movie became so easy that piracy went down a lot. It's like, oh, you finally all the pirates for like, you finally made a way that's so easy to access. I'll give you money. It's like because
but they always I feel like people have done research on this too, where like people who pirate games are also more likely to actually buy them.
I think
I don't know how true that is. That depends on a million different factors.
I think piracy went down a lot with Steam, to be honest, because Steam is just so. And also Epic Games giving out the free game every week. I don't know why they do that, but it's weird.
I hate EGS though, because the exclusives. Because it seems like they, I don't want to, this is a different discussion entirely, but the way that EGS came onto the scene, and they bought their way to having the presence that they have now in the sort of the gaming sphere, where like they are a competitor to Steam. The only reason they are is because they bought exclusive rights to publish a million different games, not a million different ones, but this is a personal thing because there's so many games that I wanted to play on PC, and then they were only available on EGS, and I'm like, I don't need
EGS Epic Game Store.
Yeah, exactly. Because you got Steam, you got Origin or EA. It's called just the EA app now. I think they rebranded.
I don't know.
You got that EGS.
Origin.
You play Origin. Yeah, it used to be called Origin, but it's just called the EA app now.
Okay. I haven't touched it for so long.
I think so, and it's just like I just want one platform.
Yeah. It was I didn't like. I was happy with Steam, but a game I really wanted to play, MechWarriors 5, was released a year exclusive on Epic, and I was like, okay, well.
Same with Alan Wake 2. I don't even know if that is on Steam.
A lot of people hate a lot on Epic, but I actually think they seem to be pretty decent.
I hate them for one very specific reason. I'll get into it, but finish what we're gonna say.
But the thing is that Epic gives the game developers and publishers a much larger cut than Steam does.
Yeah.
So I think
I think Steam is also filled with a lot of
crap games.
Yeah, like the eShop on the Switch. I feel like the curation on EGS is maybe a little bit. I haven't really looked into their shop front too
much. They have a lot
of
free-to-play games too, but honestly, I think that if
they're
giving a better deal to the people making the games.
I don't mean like free-to-play games. I mean like my hentai loli, Nyan Cat, Rainbow, Troll Face.
A lot of weird
uncensored edition XXX.
Games.
Yeah.
Theme, quotation marks.
Cookie clicker with boobs.
Yeah.
Booby clicker. That's a that's nobody steal that.
You're gonna be.
That's gonna be. I'm gonna make bank.
No, but I think that Epic is not. I think they're pretty decent when it comes to they're giving more money to the actual people making the games. I think maybe Steam has turned a little bit greedy, and people are just so happy with the interface of Steam that they're defending it till death, even though. It might be a lot better for the people who actually make your games to go on Epic Game Store.
It also makes sense for Epic to have that storefront because they have Unreal Engine and they have such an intimate relationship with the people who make these games, so it makes sense for them to have a platform to distribute those games.
If you make your game in Unreal Engine, like Satisfactory is in Unreal Engine, it was first available on an Epic. Took a while until it got to Steam.
That makes sense.
And
Valve doesn't really make video games anymore.
MechWarriors 5, but I think also it's Unreal.
UE5, maybe 4, I don't know.
And it's pretty old.
Okay.
And I understand they go to Epic because they get such a good deal. And Steam is just, it's living on a really good name and reputation, but actually I think they may turn a little bit greedy. I don't know.
But again, that's the nature of any company, right? The line has to go up, and that's what it is. The reason I hate, not Valve.
Epic Game Store.
I don't hate Valve. Valve could do nothing wrong. But the reason I hate not the Epic Game Store, but Epic Games in and of themselves is because, and this is hyper specific.
Yeah.
You know Fortnite?
Yeah.
Have you heard about that?
No. Yes. Unfortunately.
The thing is, like right around the time that they were prototyping Fortnite, whenever it was in beta, years and years and years ago at this point, they were making a sequel to Unreal Tournament.
Oh,
Unreal Tournament, you've heard this. I've talked about
You complained about it at least 5 times, I believe.
Yeah, I will complain about it once again on the record.
Yes,
they were making a sequel to Unreal Tournament, and then it was a weird sort of public thing. They were sort of recruiting. It was like an open development thing where people could just sort of chip in with assets and code, and it was a little bit strange, the dev process. It was clear that they didn't really want to put money into it, but they wanted to make it anyway, so that was fine. I think you can still play it technically. I think it's still available, but it's sort of just in limbo now. It's like a forever beta sort of thing. But the thing is, Fortnite took off right around
when they were going to develop Unreal Tournament.
Yes, and then they put all of the developments, their developers and all of those assets and all the time and money, they put that into Fortnite instead when it became such a smash hit.
Yeah.
And so the reason Fortnite exists is the reason that I don't have a sequel to Unreal Tournament. And I would like one because they don't make arena shooters anymore like they used to.
Yeah, I can sympathize with that because Fortnite is... I don't know. I played it a few times. And
I like Fortnite though.
You do.
I mean, people will build like 12. You got these 12-year-olds building like 5-star hotels with valet parking and a spa and a facility and a spa facility and like beachfront access. They build that in the span of like 2 seconds, and I guess they're using macros. They have to be, because I don't understand how anybody could have that sort of reaction time. But if you take the building aspect out of it, I think it's fun. I think it's fine. It's very mediocre, but it's very
casual.
Yeah, again, it's mediocre in the sense that it is the blueprint for every other game that came after it. Because every free-to-play game since Fortnite is basically just Fortnite with a different art style.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Apex Legends, say.
And again, that makes sense because Epic Games, they have that legacy of making very, very good games. So of course they know what they're doing, and the gameplay is fun. But it's a money pit at this point.
I came up with a new opinion, by the way.
Okay.
I would be okay with gaming as a service.
If?
To pay a monthly fee.
Okay.
If the money actually went to the game developers.
Well, that's not happening. So let's nip that in the bud.
So like if the games I really like, even if it's an alpha, if it's early access, whatever it is, if I could get an exact percentage to know how many percentages is going to the game developer, I could have a gaming as a service. Like, imagine if Steam was like, you can access all the games. It's gonna cost you, let's say $30 every month.
Yeah.
And you can select like the games you want to support. So I can like highlight the couple of games I want to support, and I can give money to the developers, and they can continue developing it.
I think that
could be cool.
It is a cool idea, but I think the problem with introducing subscription services is that if you have a subscription, a monthly thing, then there's always, and because again, you have to price a subscription at it has to be a fairly low price, like you said, $30.
Yeah.
Video games now are sold for what were we talking about, like $80, $90 these days, right? That happens, and if you have a subscription service where you can access 1 billion games, or let's say 100, just to be realistic, where you can access 100 games for $30 every month, those games are by the very nature of the subscription program, they're going to need to be monetized heavily.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily know that would lead to like a fun gameplay experience. You wouldn't get the games as they are. Do you know what I mean?
I think you probably need to set it up in a way that you can access the games like you are paying for, let's say, 5 games.
Yeah,
and
5 games at a time. Yeah. And then you have a rotating library of free ones, maybe.
Yeah, so maybe you have a...
Which is what the Game Pass essentially is, as far as I understand it.
So if you have 5 games, if $30, it's gonna be $6.
Yeah.
And you can... Maybe you have to choose every month which games you want access to.
Yeah.
You're probably not playing more than 5 games at a given month anyways.
That,
so then you
actually, that would be helpful in the sense that people who have big game libraries, like you or I, we could actually get through it. Because then it's like, okay, we can only play these 5 this month. So
and you're like giving like $6 to them every month. And if they made a good game, they're gonna get their $100 or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, if they made a bad game, well,
it's like when
hope they don't make another game then.
Yeah, well, it's like when Blood Hunt was in beta. What I told you about when I was spending unholy amounts of money on it. I was like, I like this. I want to support them. And my impression was that the money was going to them to fund the development of the game because it was in early access and so on and so forth. So I was like, let me just like throw as much money as I can at these people because I really loved it.
Yeah.
And it suffered from it. Do you know what it suffered from? Mainly, it suffered from a player base that didn't want it. Because they were because Vampire the Masquerade is a tabletop role playing thing, and the idea of a battle royale free to play thing doesn't really mesh with that too well. So people sort of dismissed it as though it was kind of dead on arrival. But from a gameplay standpoint, it is and it was very, very fun. So I spent a lot of money on it. The problem is Shark Mob, Swedish dev, by the way. Shark Mob are owned by Tencent. So so maybe I've contributed to Chinese concentration camps. Who knows? That's something we're gonna have to cut this out, I think.
I don't know.
Maybe
China can't access YouTube.
Okay, there you go.
They blocked it.
They have, haven't they? That's true.
So yeah, I think the people who access,
Okay, can we drum up some controversy? Get the numbers rolling on this podcast. Let's like say something inflammatory.
But I don't know what when it comes to Apple
was right. I'm sorry. What were you saying?
No, I don't know when it comes to Apple and Spotify. But about gaming as a service, we have Spotify, which is music as a service.
Yes, which is not too popular in the US, as far as I understand.
They're pretty. They started to be popular, I think. I don't know,
because I think Apple has the sort of the chokehold in the US, but that's again because most people have an iPhone.
Yeah, but it's when it comes to Spotify, you're paying for music as a service, and that money is not going to the artists.
Oh no, that's infamously. Yeah,
and I think that's the same issue we're gonna have with gaming as a service. That's probably where, if it went to the people who made the games, why not? Like a Patreon or something. Yeah. Like it's like I stream on Twitch. If somebody likes what I do, they can choose to support me every month.
Yeah,
it's like if a game that I'm watching that's on that's in development, if I like what they're doing, I can pay them every month. And if they start to do really bad decisions, I can just stop supporting them. Of course, yeah. So it's like I think the idea gaming as a service is not bad, but the people, the greedy middle hands, as always, like people on the different platforms, they want to get as much as possible, and the people are actually making it.
But the production
not getting much.
But even besides the greediness, I think it's just the production costs are so high now to where, you can develop a game, and the time it takes to develop a game is essentially like a AAA game. Let's say that takes 6 to 8 years.
Yeah,
and that's nearly the entire lifespan of a console.
But I feel that it's more a problem with the game development industry in the big markets, the AAAs. I don't know what they're doing, but they're taking a lot of bad decisions, and they seem to be a little bit out of touch on what people actually want.
Yeah,
because the indie games don't really have this problem. There's a lot of indie games.
Well, again, but it's because they project all of these like, okay, these are the sales figures we're going to try to reach. But then the problem is they're entirely like unrealistic.
And they don't want to take risks, so
this is why I'm glad, again, not to talk about Tomb Raider all the fucking time, but Tomb Raider recently got out of the hands of Square Enix, Square Enix, and the past 3 Tomb Raider games have sold extremely well.
Yeah,
extremely well, like genuinely very well. To the point where they're the best selling across the entire franchise, which that makes sense because games are also more accessible now. Blah 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 blah. The thing about that, though, is Square Enix, they had projected numbers that were like astronomically higher, to the point where I believe when they released the first Tomb Raider reboot in 2013, they came out and they said like, we didn't meet our sales goals. This was disappointing. And then they literally, because it sold so well, they literally had to sort of come on later and like retract that statement and be like, by the way, no, it was not a disappointment. So clearly the people who are in the boardrooms who are just crunching the numbers, they're completely like disconnected from anything else. And that's the problem.
I think that's the...
So I mean, hopefully with the
when investors and artists kind of clash.
Yeah.
And that's only not an issue when it comes to very small indie games.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of indie games are almost made as hobby projects.
Yeah.
Some take off, some don't. And it's just the people making the indie games have to accept that perhaps this is not going to be a hit, but it's fun to do.
Yeah.
And it's really noticeable. And when it comes to the triple
But it's
games,
it's like retro gaming, like games made in the 90s and early 2000s, where they were making them before games went mainstream in that way, where it was like a hobby for ugly nerds in the basement, like you or I. Like before that point, there was a creativity there and a will to take risks. Whereas now, because again, because the AAA costs are so high, they can't. They're doing remakes, they're doing sequels.
And if I'm sitting as like a if I'm sitting as a designer and making like different handgun models all day, and I don't even know in what context they're gonna be used, and I'm probably fired before they're done, and like it's a mess, and nobody wants to take risks. They try to remake the same thing every year.
I think the thing is,
it's not gonna work.
With the way the industry is going recently, with the layoffs and the shutdowns and everything, I feel like we're gonna come to a point. I mean, of course, not for the individual developers who are affected by this and who are out of a job, because that's horrible. But I feel like at an industry level, I hope it crashes and burns, so that indie games can sort of
become the new games.
Yeah, a little bit.
Because
even if it's going to be very
in the early 2000s and before that, a lot of it, like Bandits Phoenix Rising, super fun. 2005, I think it was from.
Yeah.
2000? No, it's 2002. Anyways, the early 2000s, those games, even though they became the like AA, AAA studios in like today. At the time when they were making, they were basically in the studios, a couple of guys in the basement, and you know.
Future Cop LAPD, made by EA.
Yeah.
Redwood Shores, I think. Same studio that made this. I might be talking out of my ass. I don't know that for sure, but they were made by EA, and that was like one of the first sort of major games that EA put out. And it's a very good. It's basically. Have you heard of Future Cop?
No.
It's basically like the progenitor to every single MOBA. Because they had like besides story mode, there was like a game mode, and it's basically a MOBA with lanes and shit. And that's sort of where that started. Of course, MOBAs are probably, I don't play MOBAs too much. No. I have a friend who's really into Smite, which I've played a little bit, but I don't get it.
No, that could be as a service.
Yeah, well Smite is free to play as far as I know. So,
but in any case, to sum this up a little bit. Gaming as a service is gonna be unnecessary and not very good, probably, unless they could make a model that you could yourself support the developers on some kind of Patreon or something. That could be cool.
I think it makes sense for businesses.
Yeah.
Not for individual, like on an individual level. I don't need cloud gaming. You don't need cloud gaming. My mom doesn't need cloud gaming.
Most gamers will not need cloud gaming.
An internet cafe could probably make use of cloud gaming.
If they have a local mainframe.
Exactly, with that whole thing. The problem is, though, is there a market for internet cafes and arcades?
Yeah.
Because everything is so sort of, you know, that culture is not really there anymore, which is sad. I mean, but then again, I'm going to spark some controversy here. I would probably rather be at home, like, with my computer over there, versus sitting in an internet cafe with people who have not, you know, who use, like, 3-in-1 shampoo.
I think most people...
And let me be clear, they use 3-in-1 shampoo to clean their keyboards, not in the shower. You know what I mean? Like that kind of person.
I see,
So...
But in any case, I think we are probably a lot over time. Or
maybe, but this was a good one. I feel good about this. The AI thing was a little bit... I mean, we were finding our feet, too. Yeah. But I feel like this is... Again, because AI is so techy, and we're not tech people in that sense.
Well, I'm kind of tech people.
Well, you are more than me, but I mean in terms of like it's you know, this is more sort of... This is more applicable to people. Like people can. It's
easy to relate because we kind of know how it's gonna develop and how it's gonna happen.
We're in the middle of it right now.
When it comes to AI, we're also in the middle of it. But anything can happen, and honestly, nobody knows.
AI has not plateaued yet. That's the thing.
Yeah, like Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, he doesn't know exactly what's gonna happen in the future either. Nobody knows. It's when we get to the point where AI becomes smarter than us, we meet a singularity. That's the point, which we, per definition, can't know what will happen. So it's like, what will happen? Who knows? It can be useful, but anyways, with cloud gaming and gaming as a service, we kind of almost tried it. We heard about it. We, you know.
I'm not against it in theory, but in practice, it's just not.
Now, you may be listening to this podcast on Spotify, but it's gonna be a little bit like Spotify, you know, where they kind of.
And I love Well, maybe I shouldn't say that, but I do use and enjoy Spotify.
It's useful. It's just sad that the artists aren't getting.
No, but again, I think that's also a thing with like. Again, this is. I'll say this sort of round things out. With music, with Spotify, they don't get anything from streams, the artists. But that's why you go out and you buy the CD, you buy the vinyl, you buy the cassette, because cassettes are trendy nowadays again. You buy all of these box sets and the merch and everything else. And that's what I feel about, that's where we're maybe going to end up with gaming too. Like limited run, doing all of these like collector's editions for stuff. Where you can buy things to support the game and support the devs. But in a way where they see more of that money. Yeah. Because they're going to see more of the money through merchandising than they are through sales of the actual game itself.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, and of course the numbers are higher on you know, like a game sold on Steam, the amount that goes to the publisher and then to the dev, that's probably astronomically higher than the Spotify amounts. But still, that we're talking completely different numbers here anyway.
But still, it's a service, Spotify. You don't buy individual albums.
And I think Apple Music moved to that too, because I remember iTunes was like on a per album basis. You bought music. I think Apple Music is just like a streaming thing now too. I think so. I don't know. I don't use Apple Music.
I don't know either.
So I think that's what they moved to, because Spotify sort of, that's become the streaming is the new thing. You don't really hear about people buying albums digitally anymore. Yeah. I bought a few Lana Del Rey albums because for some reason the album versions were different from the streaming ones, and they had the album versions available on Google, not YouTube Music, but they had that other Google. There is a Google platform, like a music store.
I
don't think it's called Google Music. It's called something like.
I think it's probably became YouTube Music because Google.
Maybe. I think, but it was like this was a couple of years. It was like 5-6 years ago. You know, because you have the Play Store, and then they had like a music equivalent to that. They had a movie equivalent to that as well. My dad was really into that. He bought a lot of movies to like stream on his phone. Yeah. But Steam used to have movies too.
Google had.
They don't anymore. I wonder what's with that licensing thing.
Maybe they probably can't focus on anything. Everything, like they are focused on games. They shouldn't be doing like Netflix. Get out of the gaming market. Like seriously, what are you doing?
Yeah, true.
It's like my opinion, but yeah, I think that probably rounds things. I think so. This has been your host. I'm Eric
and Kerry
for the GMODISM channel. So. Do indeed check us out on the other platforms if you want to listen to it. There is Apple and there is Spotify. And you can, of course, watch us too on YouTube.
Yes, indeed.
You can support this podcast also on shop.gmodism.com, where you can join. Where we have
your own domain. Fancy.
I do. I have had that for several years.
Golf claps.
But in any case, the shop.gmodism.com is actually connected up to a separate provider, and there you can join the Ministry of GMODISM or the Government of GMODISM Public Broadcasting Department.
Is that like a fun acronym? I'm trying to put it together in my head.
No, that's just fun world building.
But you should make like a fun acronym out of it. Rename it a little bit so it spells out something funny. I'm 5 years old, really. That's what this is about.
We'll have to look into that. But in any ways, thanks for joining us this time, and stay tuned. See ya.
We will see what happens.